Welcome to the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Matthew Connor here, host of the Cyber Business Podcast. Today, we're joined by Bryan Finney, CIO of Vector Security. Bryan, welcome to the show.
Hey, well, thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you and great to have you on. Before we get too far in, a quick words from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by cyberlynx.com. That's cyberlynx.com. Do you know if a hacker's in your system? Most people and most companies don't until it's too late and the hacker's already done damage. A hacker's job is to bypass your security, so companies need a way of knowing when someone's gotten past their security. That's where CyberLynx comes in. We've partnered with the best cybersecurity companies in the world to be able to provide our clients with the best solutions at the best prices. So whether it's managed SIEM, SOC, EDR, MDR, XDR, you name it, we'll be able to help you find the right solution at the right price. Contact us at cyberlynx.com. That's cyberlynx.com. And now back to our show. Bryan, for those who aren't familiar, can you tell us about Vector Security and your role there as CIO?
Sure, yeah. So Vector Security, we sell residential, small business, and commercial security systems. And we're stated to be around, the fourth largest security company in the US. And, we have some good customers and, excited about where the growth of this industry is going, especially with AI and some of the advanced technologies versus the traditional phone line type of security systems that we've seen in the past. Yeah, the organization itself, it's interesting. We've been around for 50 years, and Benjamin Franklin actually started this company many years ago as a fire insurance company, and it's the Philadelphia Contribution Ship. And then 50 years ago, instead of actually, having high insurance premiums for fires, how about we prevent fires? So they actually partnered with Westinghouse Security, and over the years divested and became Vector Security. And so pretty interesting story for anybody interested in reading about us. Check out our new website. We actually just had a new website go live this week. So part of our overall business transformation. So as far as my role, I started the organization a little over 3 years. So January of 2022. And we, embarked on a business transformation. And one of my main roles is making sure that we're driving, excellence and new technology into the organization, but looking at our people, our processes, and then technology. So it is a business transformation, not a digital transformation. I can continually talk to my peers and my executive team on this is a journey, and there will be some starts and stops and some challenges. Transformations, most of them fail, right? So, we are well deep past the middle of this and looking to have some good success over the next 18 months and start rolling out even more technology. So I've been also focusing on the overall fundamental transformation of IT and formalizing the right teams and growing the team as well. So, when I came in here, there was a big acquisition prior to that called ADS Security based in Nashville. And so they had an IT shop. Vector Security had an IT shop, so we unified to one IT. So I branded it one IT, took some folks from both sides of the organization, created a leadership structure, and stood up teams that didn't even exist before. This is a small, medium business, but we're on the edge of becoming a very large company. And so we have a cybersecurity team. We have a infrastructure team. We have a development team. We have a support team on enterprise systems. We have a reporting and analytics and delivery team. And recently, I just brought over someone that I worked with at FedEx, is now leading up our enterprise architecture team. So I feel, we're on a great trajectory of standardization and looking at just modernizing our technology stack. One example, before we get into some of the other questions, is telephony. There we had really 4 phone systems coming in, and we unified those phone systems into one. And over the past 2 years, just driving through and making sure, looking at from a cost perspective as well as timing with our business transformation. So there are some road bumps in the transformation journey, and so some decisions we made were based on time. So now we step back and reflect and say, okay, should we do things differently? Should we put all our eggs in one basket? And now we're looking at segmentating some of those areas. So phones is very important in the security industry. We have to answer the phone for someone. They're in, life safety situation. So that's why I'm looking at adding more resiliency into that and making a different decision than I made originally, and looking at how do I decouple that out, find more of a niche player that's focused just on telephony while my whole ERP is in another platform. But yeah, different, interesting journey. And, recently promoted to CIO, excited about that. That's been my goal for quite some time. So interested to talk more about that journey to get there.
I love it. Well, you've given us so much to dive into there. I can't help but think, well, first, when you said Thomas Jefferson, I almost thought you were making a joke, that the company was founded by Thomas Jefferson, but nope, you were serious. And that is a heck of a founder story there. And then your new website does look really nice, by the way. It's a nice website, which as I was going through it, I couldn't help but wonder, when it comes to, and you're talking about business, kind of transformation and IT transformation, I can't help but wonder, when it comes to security and, we're talking about physical security and surveillance, where do you see kind of AI playing a role in this? And, are you guys doing stuff now with it? Or is there stuff, in the future that's, kind of on the roadmap? What are we looking at?
Yeah, yeah. AI is, very interesting to watch. And I would say we're, a fast follower in some situations based off of our partners that we have. Like alarm.com is a big partner in the residential space. So we're piggybacking off of what they're doing, especially in the world of just video analytics. Being able to know if you have a Ring system similar or a vector security doorbell system that is powered by alarm.com, it knows it's a deer in your backyard. It knows if your child or somebody, is leaving the house at 1 a.m. and they normally don't open the door at that time. So it's leveraging information based off behaviors and historical data to be able to predict, what's going on. So I just see, being able to respond quicker. And that's one of the biggest things from an AI. I don't see it actually replacing anything, but augmenting, the alerts in the alarm industry to be able to predict faster. One, we don't have to do a truck roll because we know if it's a false positive, and we know that that situation probably is just a fire alarm. Nothing else happened. The sprinklers didn't go off. All the connected systems. Someone just needs to reset the system, or it's the ability to augment the central station technicians that are answering the phone to give them information. So one proof of value, I'll call it, I want to do this year to advance some of our AI initiatives is look at the wealth of information we have with all the disparate areas. So we're pretty much west of the Mississippi, or east of the Mississippi, sorry. And so what we're creating is a shared service model in our organization. So we're moving folks from each of our branches into a centralized team to have a 24/7 customer service. And that's where one of the areas we feel like we differentiate ourselves. What is great about that is now you're bringing a collective mindset together. And so how do you leverage all that knowledge into one space? That's what we're looking at, using some type of AI capabilities now on the internal to be able to help our customers. So Microsoft Copilot, has the ability to be able to, dig deep into a lot of the information that we have. So how can we now use that Copilot Studio to create a model that now that technician has almost like a single intelligence. And now we can actually, someone that may not have answered a phone in the South, they normally live in the North. There's some differences there, right? So they'll have that same information at their fingertips. So those are some of the proof of concepts we'll be putting up this year to help drive and add value to one of our strategic initiatives this year, is standing up that shared service model.
That's awesome. So let's dive into your background. I mean, I love how, I don't think we've had two guests on the podcast who had the same, path to CIO. So can you take us through your background, how you went from zero to hero, if you will?
Yeah, sure. It's been a journey, and of course, you always like to see things move quicker. But I think I took a calculated approach, and I usually call it self-awareness. When you're actually in different roles. So I started in the retail industry, and it's really my first full-time job, leaving, coming out of college, and I was at 16 years in retail. Retail is an interesting organization, quick moving, all driven from marketing and advertising, making quick decisions and moving throughout. So the IT shop there, was a pretty diverse IT shop. When I first started, we were looking for things to do. Everybody's just coming out of the mainframe days and looking at doing some development. So I started as a web developer and looked at creating business value based off of us looking for information. They were looking for ways to help our customers. Then, I think that just a couple successes it picked on were like, now we had too much work. So now people are like, oh, wow, you can actually create that Microsoft Access database that they might have been using. Now you can put that online and it's that much valuable. So from there, it kind of just moved fastly into an area where I wanted to get into more leadership. But in order to do that, I had to look for a more of a niched area to keep growing onto. So one of those areas was around portals. So worked with a couple business leaders and stood up a knowledge management practice. All of that was actually based off of a lawsuit where someone was trying to prove a meat manual. So which meat manual was accurate? Was it the one that the guy unfortunately had an accident with that probably had meat, blood and stuff like that on top of it? Or is it this pristine one that the corporate team had? And no one had proof of what one was most accurate at that point in time. So we created a knowledge management platform to be able to have proof of what is the latest version. And obviously the latest version is what is in our knowledge management repository. So we created a portal on top of that, rolled out to, all the team members, 35,000 team members across that landscape. And, we had a great platform. But from there, then I started progressing, okay, what do I want to do next? And, I went into a data warehousing role and started focusing on being a team lead. And then that turned into becoming a program manager for a whole bunch of areas within IT. So I kept on expanding and diversifying the different areas that I was responsible for. And a lot of the time, always seemed to go back to customer experience and making sure that the best customer experience is there and thinking about attention to detail on how does that end user use things. So then fast forward, I was just like, well, what do I do next? And I went into an innovation role. So I actually created an innovation hub where it was a destination for folks in the organization. I stole some of the data center because the data centers at that point started shrinking. And I made it the fishbowl, I called it, but it was glass windows and you look and it was all new technology. So I was working with all the partners you could think of on bringing new technology into the retail space. I even had a fuel pump with TVs and you could actually have a pop dispensing at the fuel pump because, one of the areas we're trying to solve there is, okay, people get their gas and they leave. Well, how can we actually get more dollar there? And we can actually give them a drink right there. It was almost like a funnel, like a bank, and ship you like the pop. So that's kind of cool there. And then, it kind of evolved a little bit more. And I was just like, okay, what do I do after that? Then I actually moved into the business for a little bit. And so that was at the time where people were trying to figure out online ordering. So we started a program called Curbside Express, me and one other VP, and then we expanded this team into about 25 folks. I brought in copywriters, I brought in advertising folks, marketing, email folks, web developers, all the different types of people we needed to create a platform to take the traditional shopping experience and correlate that online. How do you buy meat? How do you buy a whole bunch of bag of peanuts? Trying to think of that whole type of scenario, which was quite interesting. So I did that for a couple of years, and then I called that kind of a boomerang. I boomeranged back into IT and looked for opportunities from there. And then I ended up just finding something landed at my table. A guy called me up. He says, "Hey, you interested in a new opportunity?" I said, "Oh, you never know." So he says, "I got this company called Genco. They're about to be bought by FedEx. And are you interested?" I said, "Let's have a conversation." So we went to Bob Evans, had breakfast. Fast forward about 2 months later, I was sitting at Genco and it was becoming a FedEx company. So I got to enjoy, one of the largest brands on the earth for, about 5 years. And then unfortunately, this is where, not everything hits your plan. Like I had a plan to trajectory to at that point to report to the CIO. I was a couple levels down. I was focusing on business relationship and just driving strategy and demand management within the organization. I was about to move up, and then we had an announcement, hey, we're actually going to have to move to Memphis. I am a Pittsburgh native. My family's here. My wife's family's here. That wasn't going to happen. So then I decided to, look for another opportunity. I went to the CIO that right after that meeting, he goes, I know exactly what you're going to say. And I said, yep. He goes, all right, take your time, figure out what you need to do. So I landed at Evoqua, which was a spinoff from Siemens Water. And I came in as a senior director. And 1 month after that, my CIO at the time, he ended up leaving. So I became a co-CIO with someone else that was there for about 10 years. And we worked through COVID started right then and there. So that just changed the whole dynamic of being able to now completely work remotely and try to figure that whole pathway out and still grow your career. And it became a little bit of a challenge at times, but we, worked through it because I came in new, taking most of IT, and this individual only had a couple pieces of IT, and we were kind of co-leaders. So over time, I looked at it strategically and gave him more responsibility while I was thinking about, how to get more involved with the business and thinking more like a business leader, focusing on cybersecurity, making sure we're protecting our assets. So throughout COVID, there's the good and bad, but then you're always looking for opportunities. And at that point, vector security, fell onto my plate by someone calling me again. It just randomly happened. Every time I got a job was someone just calling either looking for somebody else or just saying, "Hey, you're looking for an opportunity." So I took the leap, and I'm like, this was the smallest company that I am working for. I mean, you figure Giant Eagle, we had about 300 IT team members. FedEx was a lot more than that. A
Yeah.
lot more than that. Genco, or sorry, Evoqua, we had 90 on site and 90 offshore, so about 180. And then I came into this shop, and it was a little bit challenged. My team initially was around 25 folks, and trying to think, okay, how do we achieve all the things we want to do? Well, thinking like a big company, but with a small team wearing multiple hats. So I've strategically grown the organization to about 42 folks based off of areas that we felt like is important. We're doing business transformation, so we got to bring on new skill sets. We're focusing on cybersecurity, so we got to add some folks there. Enterprise architecture, reporting and analytics, those didn't even exist. Now, trying to really be more strategic and more business partners. My biggest thing with IT is not waiting, being at the table and driving and making the right decisions and adding business value. So to fast forward real quick, I mean, that was kind of the career as I moved through it. And you look at some of your mentors and leaders that you've been around with. I still in my mind think about, okay, what would Jay say? What would Russ say? Some of these key CIOs that I've had, and trying to think about how they've done things over the years. Yes, things have changed, but it still comes down to leadership, and I call a lot of it servant leadership. I will roll up my sleeves and I will do things. I will empower my team and I'll give them autonomy as well. I create those guardrails. They stay within those guardrails based off the strategic goals we have. And then we're moving forward. Everybody's singing from the same sheet of music.
Yeah. Well, I can't help but think, as you start build, having gone from these, massive companies, and kind of seen the entire spectrum, right, and worked in it, and now as you move into this role, and you had 25 people in your IT department, and you're looking to build out, cyber. I think a lot of people find themselves in similar situations where they um have a lot to do with very few, with a finite number of people to help them do it, right? And so when you said stuff like, you want to roll out, cybersecurity, kind of as as a guy in cybersecurity, and we obviously provide cybersecurity services. I'm really curious about your the thinking there. That's a funny spot where you've got enough people to get a lot done, but you don't have so many people that you can get everything done. And so for you guys, was that something where that decision you made, was it we'll bring all the cyber in-house, bring that, or do you leverage outside partners and say, hey, look, we don't want to build our own SOC, so we'll have we'll partner with somebody, have a managed SOC for us. What was your strategy when it came to stuff like that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I call it outsource responsibly, and looking for different areas that make sense. And I even started in a different area as well with laptop distribution.
Yeah.
When I came here, all those things are coming through in a messy, office that one person was trying to just manage all this. And I'm just like, with some of the great advancements with Microsoft and Microsoft Autopilot and Intune, I can have a third party send that to the end user tomorrow. And that's that perfect scenario, almost called nirvana, that to get to that self-deployment. And then now we only have to be working on exceptions or white glove treatment. So we
That's right.
outsource that.
Nice.
Right now I'm in the process of doing the same thing with phones. There's we have what we call SPOCs, which are just SMEs within the business, as well as we have some folks on my team. No reason to manage cell phones. Have the
Yeah.
same thing, a turnkey solution. So I have another company that's looking at that. Then when you get into the cybersecurity space, yeah, it's you can't do everything, and you don't have your guys up at night 24/7 either.
It's tough.
So you got to look at you got to look at some type of SIM. You got to make sure that you're looking at the right technology, and you have other eyes on it. There's AI, there's automation, but you still need to have eyes on the system and to be able to react as quick as possible. And then
Yeah.
breaking down the organization into different areas, and because especially in our world, we have our central station I mentioned, we have our corporate systems in that backbone, and then we have the OT side of the business, which in every organization I've been at, that's always been the most challenging is the OT and shadow IT and just trying to put protection around that. Everybody probably remembers WannaCry and what it affected with FedEx. And they were like the Pony Express in Europe for quite some time. We had people from my office go out there to try to help solve that problem. And the problem's just becoming more and more advanced, especially with AI. But AI is beneficial as well. We have some solutions with Microsoft that now will put people at risk based off of if I logged here, where I'm at here in Pittsburgh, and then 2 minutes later I'm logging in California. I think it's impossible. We don't have the ability to be able to travel that fast yet. So now I'm high risk. My account gets blocked. So that's pretty exciting there. So there's some advancements in technology that are helping us. Some partnerships we have. We have one thing that with my team being so small and wanting to do obviously a lot. I'm used to being able to drive things faster, but I think we drive things at a right cadence. Each of my teams and all the disciplines that I talked about before, everybody has a 3-year roadmap. Every 6 months we look at that roadmap and we reevaluate what we're doing. Different things will pop up. If transformation slows down, we can pull things in. Transformation speeds up, we got to put things out. And different environments. One thing, if we can't transform at the speed we want to, then it will be a burden on our team. So there are things holding us back. There's technology that's been here for 30 years. I got to decommission 29 applications. So then we start changing our landscape more so to be agile and more cloud-based. And then now we're looking at how do you protect yourself in the cloud and making sure that the technology is constantly changing and making sure you're making the right decisions.
I mean, that's quite a challenge. I mean, you're talking about a business that's been around using, the same, technologies sometimes, as you mentioned, 20 to 30 years old, and having to do that transformation. I mean, first of all, it's not like you're a company that just has one technology that you have to work on. You're in, home security, business security, surveillance, there's I mean, geez, the number of products and services, it's not small. It's a lot, to manage. So how do you do that? How do you go about with, a relatively small team? How do you go about transforming that and tracking on all of those the different technologies, making sure that the transformation goes well, that nothing is, kind of falls through the cracks, that everything is still handled, that services are still provided. um, it seems like a heck of a challenge. I mean, it's one thing to launch a new product or service. Yay, cool, easy. It's one new thing versus you've got dozens of old things that you now have to modernize while people are using them and make the transition and make everybody happy. Seems like a real challenge.
Yeah, it can be. And one good thing, a lot of, especially when we talk about security systems, as physical security systems, it's the world of the partnerships and who we partner with and how quick they're innovating and just staying on top of what they're doing with best practices. And those best practices are shared both ways.
Nice.
And they might be doing some things. If we talk about alarm.com as an example, very large company, we were actually customer number 2. So we
Nice.
have a good voice into that organization and a good partnership. And everything we do, they've expanded their team. I mean, they probably have, I don't know, over 2,000 developers that are focusing on their platform. So we get the benefit from large organizations like that, branded as our brand, and then we're focusing on where we differentiate ourselves, which is with sales, service, and install, and making sure that we're the best customer service out there, and making sure now from a technology perspective, now my priorities shift in making sure, so from a customer service, how can I make sure they have the right information on a single pane of glass? And that goes back to decoupling some of our technology. Telephony is very important for our organization to be able to answer the phone. So not putting all my eggs in one basket is looking at diversifying my technology stack. So at any point in time, DR, cyber, business continuity, other challenges that are out there, changes in transformation, that we can be as resilient as possible and take, if there's an outage from 6 days, take it down to 3, down to 1, or have no outage because we've differentiated our technology. I mean, you look at what happened with a very large brand in our industry that had nothing to do with which is CrowdStrike, right? That incident of Microsoft having some change management issues and the impact to the globe. Now it makes you think about, okay, do you have all your eggs in one basket? How do you differentiate yourself there? Do you have an A and B EDR? And so you think of things so different. It's come to light to me more recently, and just like, at one point in time in our careers, we wanted to have everything all together, everything all integrated, and everything just all talking to each other
Yeah.
to make it easy to manage so we can do more other stuff. But then you're like, well, when everything is all like that, now that introduces points of failure. So you got to look at your architecture a lot differently. In some cases, you got to diversify more and put up some large walls and make it a little bit harder to manage at times, just to be able to protect yourself more.
Yeah, no, wise words. And it is really fascinating. That's such a good point, because it really was all about, unifying and having everything, one technology to manage, one product, one pane of glass. And now I think CrowdStrike was a great example of, you know, um, diversification is how you mitigate the risk of one thing taking you down. I mean, you wouldn't have your entire network running on one switch.
Right.
That's crazy, right? So,
Exactly.
yep. So why wouldn't you apply that same, theory to everything else, that same practice to everything else? Brilliant. But I gotta ask, because I recently um put in some new surveillance cameras myself, around the house, right, and outside the house. And we were using Nest, and then we went to Ubiquity's their new AI Pro cameras. Super cool, really, great, because the AI does cool stuff like identify people. I pick up the license plates, cars that pull in or drive by and stuff. So cool stuff. But still, I was still hoping for more. They even with 4K and even with their DSLR, the camera that was, I still wanted better visibility. So in terms of cameras, do you think that's something that we're going to see in the future, where your AI powered camera is going to be just, absolutely, I don't know, I don't want to say like 8K, 16K, but compared to the 4K visibility that you get, where you zoom in, okay, cool. Like with Nest, forget about it. You go to zoom in, somebody, unless they're right in front of the camera, you're not identifying that person, even though you've got the 4K version of their cameras. Unless you know them, you're not identifying. They're getting away with whatever they came to do, right? It's like, oh, it was, yep, a person, and they were like 6 footish maybe, and I can't tell anything else about them. A 6 foot blob came and did something cool. With these Ubiquity cameras, it's very nice, clearly much better. You can zoom in, it does all kinds of cool stuff. But still, I'd like to be able to zoom in and see their DNA, right? Do you think at some point that we're going to get to the point with cameras and kind of security technology to where it is just that good, or is it that's probably a little far off?
It depends on the use case. I mean, there is some advancements in technology, obviously, then the cost. to enter is very high. So, you're looking at only large commercial that could actually take and procure that in a supply chain world or something like that. In the consumer side, they're only willing to pay for so much.
Mm.
Now, as technology becomes proven and more advanced, I think one of the biggest areas that will end up happening is more wireless. So if we can figure out ways to charge and have batteries last longer, lithium's the first attempt to that, I guess a little bit, but I think we got to have it maybe based off of some other innovation, maybe by air. I don't know,
Yeah.
wind blowing somehow, who knows? But
Right.
is having more happen on the edge though. I think more happening on the edge by putting a little bit more tech at it there, where you could actually get faster real time information, especially from an AI side, because you figure if it's going out and it's mashing data through some type of cell connection, you're going to have national latency as well. So I think that's some changes. There's some cool innovation coming. One around even with drones. I just bought some land, and not that I'll probably be able to afford the drone situation that's there yet, but eventually we will, where it's at a base, it gets a trigger in the corner, maybe 40 acres away. It's going to fly up, boom, and be able to take those pictures, those video, and maybe even talk to that bad actor there, and then do whatever it needs to do. So imagine, in a commercial world, in a large kind of facility, being able to manage that. And I think some of that technology hasn't been if drones itself hasn't got adopted. People are like, is that going to do anything? They got some robotic stuff going on, but even when I was at FedEx, they were doing cool stuff with drones to be able because top of planes and be able to do see if something need repair where a human eye is not going to see that and scan the
Yeah.
top of it. So I think some of those just depends on the purpose and the practice of it. But I think the cost is what holds back from residential consumers getting it as fast as possible.
Mm.
Am I going to pay myself $1,000 for a really good camera? Do I really need to see that person's DNA? Right. But I think if you can get good enough cameras to be able to do some type of AI on the edge, now I can react faster.
Yeah. And I think that was one of the things I liked about like the ubiquity is it's doing it right there on the edge and it's so fast. Like the Nest, it might take 10, 15 seconds just to connect to the for the app to load up your cameras. You're like, are you
Yeah.
killing me? Right.
Yeah.
Whereas at least Ubiquity is running right there on on the edge on your network. Boop, it's all instant. So the wife is very happy about that. She wants to see something, it's there
Most important.
immediately. And
Most
it does
important.
all the analysis right there. And it's funny because you mentioned the $1,000 and that's how much that the AI, DSLR camera is. And it's still, I think I'd have paid $2,000 to get, twice as good of resolution on that one. Um, Again, don't get me wrong, it's really good,
Right.
but it's, I just kind of expected it to be that much better. And I do like the whole that the drone stuff. I think that's going to be really cool to see what happens because as those get powered, obviously with AI and they can make, kind of autonomous decisions and fly out there by themselves. That's some fascinating stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, sadly, in the DC area, we live in a no-fly zone, which means also for the drones, and so it's very sad. But that would be really cool to be able to have on your property and just go out and be like, hey, kids, get off my lawn. You can be that grumpy old person in the comfort of your living room and not even have to worry about it. The drone will go do the yelling for you. It's gonna be a fantastically lazy time as a senior citizen. I'm looking forward to that.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, no, definitely some cool advancements, and even not even on the video side, from a security perspective in your house security, how about floods? So putting sensors on pipes and based off of machine learning, knowing, hey, that top bathroom's leaking because of the way the water is flowing through your pipes. So there's
Yeah.
some cool technology that's just expanding into those areas. And then the most critical thing, especially in our industry, is you can't prevent flat fires. So having a fire system and having the local fire be able to come and help you out as soon as possible. that's invaluable. You got your precious family in the house, and that's a little commercial break there for vector security and fire systems. But that
I love it.
that's definitely important there. And that's one thing, if some folks say, well, I could just go with a DIY. I say, well, again, it's that fire that's going to differentiate yourself. Then the added on technology with the cameras and everything else is definitely keeps on advancing. Everybody wants it faster, but
Yeah.
again, it got to be from a business perspective. Can we scale it, and can we actually, make it a profitable endeavor? But definitely an interesting industry. I get to see what's happening with the technology there. Look from an OT side, making sure we have the best practices from our team members on what they're doing to support those customers. And then, from the corporate side on what we're doing with ERP and our portals and interfacing with all the different APIs that are coming in, a lot of modernized architecture coming into our play, investing in an enterprise architecture team, and now really thinking about standards, best practices, patterns, documentation. I got some folks on my team. I know I got one specifically. If he's listening to this, he's been with the company for 42 years. And yeah, but knows so much about the industry and knows that it's invaluable. So how do we now take all that and put it into a documented pathway to help all the new folks coming in? And so that's definitely one of my big plans over the next year is to stand that up. And we're looking at a new partner now with our business transformation journey. They're starting in the next month, and they'll have a team of architects. Now, I have an architect that's been around for quite some time, been at very large organizations. That hourglass funnel, I said, you're sitting right in that middle. You're going to be the conduit from both sides. In the beginning part of the project, we didn't have that. So now I think it's going to differentiate ourselves to help us be more successful because we're making those right decisions. Things aren't being done in a vacuum. And it's not being done just because of time. It's being done the best way to make it supportable. And that's what's key with me. After we go live, I got to support this and making sure that my team is set up for success.
Yeah, and I think it's nice because you're so clearly strategic in your thinking and your focus, right? I mean, as CIO, and that's kind of fun to as you made this progression from your early days and where it's all tactical. You're down there on the ground, in the trenches, with the beans and bullets, and now you're as the CIO. It is all about the strategy, and it's fun to hear that you as much as you enjoy the technology. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of us, guys, we get so excited about the technology, and it's so easy and fun to kind of dive in there, especially like when you've been coding, you started coding, and then it's like, it's fun to get back and just do a little bit of coding. And that's always like the going back to the roots. But you're clearly so well founded and grounded in the strategy, which is exactly what the CIO kind of needs to be. That's your job. And so
Yeah.
yeah, before we wrap up, I mean, I'd like to ask, having gone through that process and gotten to where you are today, what kind of advice would you give somebody looking to get into IT or security?
Yeah, so again, another great question. And it's funny, I actually have someone on my team that started as an intern. They've been here for 2 years. I told them that I will fail you if you are not promoted within 2 years, and they were promoted less than 2 years. And I think it's surrounding yourself with the right type of mentors. I think it's diversifying yourself and getting involved as much as possible. And then another piece is don't be afraid to work with the business and talk to the business and learn from the business. I've gotten, over my career, you look for mentors. Most of my mentors were people, business leaders. I got one mentor that has been very successful in the C-store suite because I came from the retail side. He ended up leading stores. Now he's a very high executive and just moved over to BP and looking to transform what they're doing at BP. And I
Nice.
remember those key people in my careers and either go back and talk to them, follow and see what they're doing and learn from it, and just being self-aware, you know, being here and now and asking the questions. And I see Teams videos and you're not on video and not actively paying attention. What are you doing? Right? Because this is one thing that concerns me now post COVID. It is now people don't want to come into the office, which is fine. And now you can maybe get more done with your time and you're not spending 2 hours in the car. I actually love spending 2 hours in the car because I can decompress, I can get on my phone, I can talk to people and do different types of things, listen to podcasts. But how do you grow in your career past that? How do you create? It's the in-between meetings that's critical. It's that water cooler that we've always talked about. Now that we're all coming back, we just opened up our office this week, and I'm seeing people. I'm loving it. It's the water cooler conversations in between those meetings that are invaluable. And pay attention to those times, because you will find things in your career that if you did not take that leap to do it, it's a missed opportunity. And I always tried to look at where is that, wave in the organization. I've been blessed that I've made some of the right decisions to get to where I'm at. You always want to get there faster, but I feel like, am I done? There's now just keep on adding upon what you're doing and getting more involved. I mean, ultimately, the CIO role is, yes, you're responsible for technology, but you're responsible to help educate the business leaders of the organization to think about risk, think about strategy, thinking about, what decisions we need to make, and give them the information that they need. And you're also there with them to make those decisions.
Well said. I think that's fantastic advice. Well, I think that's a perfect way to wrap it up, Bryan. Before we do, though, can you tell everybody where they can find out more about you and where they can find out more about Vector Security?
Yeah, sure. If you can learn about me, obviously on LinkedIn. So trying to get more and more engaging on there. Maybe that's part of my next part of my career is to be more involved with podcasts like this and stuff. But go to Bryan Finney at LinkedIn, and because where I want to go next is I want to see myself involved with some boards and helping other companies, and being a thought leader where I can be. Who knows, 15 years from now, maybe some type of CIO services. So, there's definitely some exciting things as I progress in my career and the rest of my life here. But and as far as Vector Security, you can learn more about that on our new website as well, vectorsecurity.com. And definitely here to help you. We have some great sales folks to help people protect either your company, or your home, and both. A lot of cases we love when it's both. And we have a lot of large national accounts across the U.S. We have like 3,600 third-party service providers that are supporting all of our customers. And I mean, it's pretty well spread out across the U.S. So it's pretty exciting when you get into the large kind of companies that have many locations, right? 3,000 plus locations, and we're securing all those. So pretty exciting.
Wow.
I appreciate the time. Thank you for this opportunity. And if anybody has any questions on anything around leadership, I'm definitely interested in helping people from a leadership perspective, and can offer any type of advice to help you move your career forward. I'm here for you.
That's fantastic. Well, thanks again for coming on, Bryan, and until next time.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it, Matt.
Thanks for listening to the Cyber Business Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.